Last year in November, Napoleon from Ridley Scott came out, and there was an angry mob that attacked the movie for being historically inaccurate or lacking context to the events being provided. By the end of August, he got the director's cut out, which is not impressive at all, with its much slower pacing, more focus on Josephine, and less intense battle scenes. By and large, of course, it is the same movie, but the changes being made does not make it better. It actually makes it weaker as a whole. If we talk about some of those mentioned changes from the cinema cut, you see the backstory of Josephine before she met Napoleon, when you see her time in jail because of her last husband, and she is told the only way to survive is to get pregnant. Then also the moment she comes back to her children. Personally, I do not see this as a good move, but perhaps for those of you that felt Josephine lacked character building, you may be more enticed by that move from Ridley Scott. There's also more emphasis on this trusted captain to Napoleon that it gets advice from that is more in the story. As the universe is more expanded, you also see more of the Tsar Alexander and how he is pressured by the Russian state not to go into this deal with Napoleon. By and large, of course, it is the same movie, but what I really don't appreciate, like I said during the beginning, is what has happened to the battle scenes, which are much less intense and shorter in the filming. The only one that perhaps is more intense in this version is Napoleon's last fight with the English before he is exiled once again, this time to St. Helena. Someone may like the addition of the Battle of Marengo, but that's some scenes that are very briefly touched upon and do not give too much context to the story. It could just be gone from the story like in the original. By adding some of these new features like the story with Josephine, you also see a bit more of Marie Antoinette before she is executed, how she is spat on by the public, and also a bit more insight into the Reign of Terror. It does make the movie draw at a slower pace, like I touched upon in the beginning. And while some may think the original running time was a too quick way to tell the story, it made the movie flow much easier as you watched it, while this version gives you a lot of boredom, where especially the first hour feels very long, like what wasn't the case in the theatrical version. Because here you in this version use a bit too much time to get to the point and tell Napoleon's story almost as if it was a documentary rather than an epic war movie. Another issue with this cut is the playful chemistry that existed between Joaquin Phoenix in the role as Napoleon and Vanessa Kirby in the role as Josephine. Although of course it is still there in some small parts, but this version tells us that Josephine didn't really love Napoleon as much as he did perhaps in the original cut. Perhaps that was the truth in a real version of events, but at the same time the movie worked much better with the playful chemistry between them, which is kind of buried in this version. Perhaps the only feature that might be a bit better in this version of the movie is that you see a bit more of Napoleon's strategical planning as he walks down on these painted maps on the floor to plan his strategy in battle. But in other ways, I do not feel the same geopolitical drama between different alliances like what was seen in the theatrical cut. Although it, of course, once again is the same movie, I just feel this cut lacks tension. But that, of course, may be down to the fact that it is a longer movie. Perhaps with other movies, one might need a director's cut to save it, but for a man that stood against this angry mob of people that attacked Ridley Scott for historical inaccuracies and such, I do not believe this cut was really necessary, as the cinema cut told the story in a way that made you really get reeled in and interested right away, whereas cut is more like a soap opera, where you use so much time to get to the point. That's why for me this cut is something I will give a 7 out of 10, while the theatrical cut was something I gave an 8 out of 10, largely because of the much better pace.